Across the globe, communities of African descent can be found in every corner, from the Americas to the Caribbean, and across Europe and Asia. Colón, Panama. San Basilio de Palenque, Colombia. The Garifuna in Belize and Honduras. Salvador, Brazil. These communities, rich in culture and history, share a painful common reality: neglect, underdevelopment, and marginalization. The places where African people live are too often the ones left behind. Why is this the case? How can regions so rich in history, culture, and resources remain so underdeveloped? The answer lies in a legacy of colonization and systemic racism that continues to plague these communities today. From the transatlantic slave trade to colonial rule, African-descended communities have been left to fend for themselves, often with little to no investment from the governments and economies that benefit from their labor and resources. Take, for example, Colón, Panama, once a thriving city, a key port connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Yet, despite its strategic location, today it crumbles, a victim of neglect. Or consider San Basilio de Palenque, Colombia, the first free town of formerly enslaved Africans in the Americas. A town that should be a symbol of resilience and freedom, yet it suffers from the same lack of infrastructure and support that plagues many Black communities worldwide. Even in the United States, the wealthiest country on the planet, the pattern is the same. Black neighborhoods are systematically starved of investment, with education, healthcare, and infrastructure often lagging behind their non-Black counterparts. This isn't just about geography, it's about the enduring impact of racism. The economic consequences of this neglect are staggering. In countries like Brazil, where Salvador holds one of the largest African-descended populations outside of the African continent, the disparity between the wealthy and the poor is often drawn along racial lines. In the US, the median wealth of Black families is a fraction of that of white families, with the racial wealth gap growing wider each year. It's a pattern seen across Belize, Honduras, Panama, Colombia, and much of the African diaspora. These communities are trapped in cycles of poverty and disinvestment. Governments often overlook these areas, prioritizing tourist hotspots and wealthy neighborhoods, while African-descended regions remain economically stagnant. When investment does come, it rarely benefits the people directly. Instead, it's foreign companies, developers, and external stakeholders who profit. The truth is, these communities are starved of opportunities for true economic growth. Their economic potential is vast but untapped because they are systematically kept out of the economic systems that would allow them to flourish. Yet, amidst all this neglect, these communities are cultural powerhouses. The Garifuna people of Belize and Honduras, descendants of Africans and indigenous peoples, are the keepers of a unique cultural tradition that includes language, dance, and music. In Salvador, Brazil, the drum beats of African heritage reverberate through the streets in samba and capoeira, drawing tourists from across the world. In San Basilio de Palenque, Colombia, the rhythms of African roots pulse through the town's vibrant festivals and traditions. And globally, African culture is embraced and celebrated. The world consumes it every day through our music, art, fashion, and food. From hip-hop and reggae to Afrobeats and jazz, the world sings and dances to our tunes. Our cultural footprint is immense. Our creativity, from streetwear fashion to culinary trends, defines global culture. But here's the irony. The same cultures the world celebrates are not benefiting the communities from which they come. African culture is a global commodity, but those who created it are rarely the ones profiting from it. Our culture is a natural resource, a gift to the world that is mined, packaged, and sold, without benefiting the very communities that give birth to it. It's time to change that. It's time to take control of our cultural assets. Imagine if we, as African people, owned the rights to our music, our food, our fashion. Imagine if we controlled the industries that profited from our art, our creativity, and our history. It's possible. In fact, it's necessary if we are to lift our communities out of economic stagnation and into a future where they can thrive. Across the globe, there are successful models. Black artists and entrepreneurs who have taken control of their intellectual and cultural property are creating new industries, building businesses, and bringing wealth back to their communities. But this shouldn't be the exception. It should be the norm. The time has come for African communities worldwide to seize control of the cultural resources that are so deeply loved by the world. We must take ownership of our music, our art, our stories. By doing so, we can create industries that are not just profitable, but transformative for our people. Whether in the United States, Central America, South America, or the African continent, the message is the same. African culture is ours, and it's time we benefit from it. Let us turn our cultural legacy into a powerful tool for economic empowerment. This is not just a local issue, it's a global one. African people, wherever they are, share a common bond. And with that bond comes a shared responsibility to lift one another up, to reclaim what is ours, and to build a future where African communities thrive. For those interested in exploring how we can harness our cultural resources to empower African-descended communities, there's a growing conversation around this very issue. The African Cultural Renaissance and Empowerment (AKRE) initiative is working toward creating a future where African culture is a tool for economic power, uniting African people across the globe. We invite you to join the conversation.